Tonight is not just another Christmas Eve. One light is about to expose what darkness has tried to hide, restore what life has broken, and awaken hope you thought was gone. Don't look away, because what this light represents could change everything about how you step into tomorrow. Tonight, we gather in a quiet moment that carries eternal power. The room may feel calm, the candles small, the flame gentle, but don't be deceived by its size. Because the greatest changes in history never began with noise, they began with light. Christmas Eve is not about decoration, tradition, or routine. It is about interruption. Heaven interrupted earth. Light interrupted darkness. Hope interrupted despair. If you will stay with me tonight, if you will listen beyond the familiar words and lean into this moment, you will discover that Christmas Eve is not only something we remember, it is something we receive. Before this night is over, some burdens will feel lighter, some hearts will breathe again, and some faith that has been flickering will burn stronger than it has in years. The reason you must stay to the very end is simple. Light always saves its greatest work for when the darkness is deepest. And some of you are closer to break through than you realize. Christmas Eve did not begin with celebration. It began with waiting. It began with a world holding its breath, aching under the weight of silence, longing for something it could not fully name. Generations had lived with promises passed down like heirlooms, spoken by prophets, whispered in prayers, sung in broken songs, yet still unseen. The night when light was born was not convenient, comfortable, or calm. It was heavy, uncertain, and dark. And that matters because it tells us something about how God works. He does not wait for perfect conditions. He steps into imperfect moments. Darkness in the Bible is never just about the absence of light. It represents fear, confusion, injustice, grief, and unanswered questions. The world into which Jesus was born was filled with political oppression, economic struggle, and spiritual exhaustion. People were tired of hoping, tired of believing, tired of waiting. Yet that is the exact moment heaven chose to move. Not earlier, not later, but right when darkness felt normal. That is the power of Christmas Eve. It declares that darkness is never a sign of abandonment, but often a sign of arrival. The light that entered the world that night did not blaze across the sky in overwhelming force. It came quietly, humbly, wrapped in flesh, dependent on human care. A fragile flame placed in the middle of overwhelming night, and that is where so many people misunderstand God. We expect Him to come strong where we feel strong, victorious where we feel victorious. But God sends light where it is needed most, not where it is admired most. He chooses barns over palaces, shepherds over kings, whispers over shouts. That means your darkest season may actually be the location of divine activity. The moments you feel overlooked, underqualified, exhausted, or unsure may be the exact moments God is closest. Light does not negotiate with darkness. It does not explain itself. It simply shows up, and darkness loses its authority. Even the smallest flame redefines the space around it. Shadows retreat, shapes become clear, direction returns. Christmas Eve reminds us that darkness has never been a problem for God. From the very beginning, creation itself began with light spoken into void. And every time darkness tried to have the final word, God responded with illumination. The night in Bethlehem was no different. Heaven did not panic because the world was broken. Heaven responded by sending light into it. Some of you understand this night more deeply than others, because you know what it feels like to carry darkness inside. You know what it means to smile while hurting, to believe while doubting, to worship while weary. You know what it means to pray prayers that feel unanswered and wait longer than you expected. Christmas Eve speaks directly to you. It says light was born for this. Not for perfect people with perfect faith, but for tired souls who are still willing to look toward heaven even when answers are unclear. Light reveals things darkness hides. It reveals truth where lies have lingered. It reveals hope where despair has tried to settle. It reveals purpose where confusion has dominated. And when light arrives, it doesn't instantly remove every problem, but it changes how you see them. Fear loses its grip. Uncertainty loses its power. The presence of light does not deny the existence of darkness, but it refuses to let darkness define reality. The manger itself preaches a message. God wrapped the answer to the world's pain in vulnerability. That tells us that weakness is not something God avoids, it is something He uses. The light of the world entered the world as a child, reminding us that growth often starts small, quiet, and unnoticed. Many people miss miracles because they are looking for spectacle instead of presence. But Christmas Eve teaches us that presence is the miracle. Darkness also has a way of making us feel isolated, as if we are the only ones struggling, the only ones doubting, the only ones hurting. Yet on that first Christmas Eve, God revealed Himself to shepherds, men who worked the night shift, men familiar with darkness. He met them where they were, not where society thought they should be. That alone should comfort someone tonight. God meets you in your night watches, in your quiet thoughts, in your unspoken fears. Light was born not just to be seen, but to be followed. The star did not simply shine, it guided. It gave direction to those willing to move, and that is the challenge of Christmas Eve. Not just to admire the light, but to trust it enough to take a step. Darkness convinces us to stand still, to wait until conditions improve, to protect ourselves from disappointment. Light invites movement, even when the path is unfamiliar. Some of you have been waiting for circumstances to change before you believe again. But Christmas Eve declares that belief comes first, light comes first, movement comes first. God does not wait for darkness to clear, He sends light to clear it. In that light carries peace, not because everything is suddenly fixed, but because God is now present in the middle of it. Peace on Christmas Eve was not the absence of conflict, it was the assurance of presence. Angels announced peace while the world remained broken. That tells us peace is not the result of control, it is the result of trust. Light does not promise an easy road, it promises a guided one. It does not promise no storms, it promises direction through them. When you hold a candle in a dark room, you realize something powerful. The flame flickers, but it does not quit. The darkness presses, but it does not win. That is the picture of faith on Christmas Eve. Not loud, not flashy, but persistent. Not perfect, but present. Some of you feel like your faith has been flickering lately. Not gone, just shaken. Christmas Eve reminds you that flickering faith is still faith, and light that shakes is still light. Darkness has a way of lying to us, telling us that what we see is all there is, but light exposes what darkness tried to conceal. It reveals paths you didn't know were there. It reveals strength you didn't know you had. It reveals that God has been working even when you couldn't see Him. The birth of Jesus happened in the night, but it changed everything that followed. This is why Christmas Eve matters. It is not a sentimental pause in the calendar. It is a declaration. Light has entered the story. Darkness is no longer in control. Fear is no longer final. Hopelessness no longer has authority. The night did not last forever, and neither will yours. Light was born for dark places, not distant places, not abstract places, but real places. Places like broken homes, anxious hearts, weary minds, silent prayers, delayed dreams. The light of Christmas does not avoid those places. It seeks them, it enters them, it transforms them from the inside out. And when that light enters, it does not ask permission from darkness, it does not compromise, it does not negotiate. It simply shines, and darkness responds by retreating, even if slowly, even if reluctantly, even if one corner at a time. That is how God works, gradually, faithfully, powerfully. Christmas Eve is not about pretending the darkness isn't there. It is about believing the light is stronger. It is about trusting that God sees what you are facing and has already stepped into it. It is about understanding that the same light that shone in Bethlehem is still shining now, still finding hearts willing to receive it, still pushing back night wherever it appears. When light touches light, something changes. A single flame standing alone can brighten a small space, but when that flame is shared, the darkness begins to lose its grip entirely. Christmas Eve teaches us that God never intended light to be hoarded, hidden, or kept to ourselves. From the very beginning, the miracle was designed to multiply. Heaven sent one light, and that light was meant to spread from heart to heart, life to life, generation to generation. There is something powerful about candlelight because it refuses isolation. One candle reaches toward another, and suddenly what was once separate becomes connected. This is not accidental. It mirrors the way God works through people. Faith was never meant to survive in solitude. Hope was never meant to be carried alone. Love was never meant to stop with one person. The message of Christmas Eve is not only that light has come, but that light can be shared without losing its strength. Some of you came tonight feeling like your flame is weak. You feel drained by responsibilities, worn down by disappointment, tired of giving when you feel empty yourself. Darkness has whispered that you have nothing left to offer. But light does not need to be strong to be shared. It only needs to be present. Even a trembling flame can ignite another. Even a small act of faith can awaken hope in someone else. Darkness thrives on isolation. It convinces us that our struggles are unique, that our pain is private, that our doubts disqualify us. But when light spreads, isolation breaks. On that first Christmas Eve, shepherds gathered together after hearing the announcement. They did not stay alone in the fields. They moved together. Wise men traveled together. Mary and Joseph faced uncertainty together. The miracle unfolded in community. When light is shared, it reveals that you are not alone in your waiting, your questions, or your fear. Someone else understands your struggle. Someone else has walked through similar nights. Someone else carries a flame that can strengthen yours. This is why the gathering matters. This is why Christmas Eve is not meant to be experienced in isolation. God often uses people as carriers of light to reach other people. Light also multiplies without diminishing. When one candle lights another, the original flame does not grow weaker. It remains just as bright. This is a spiritual principle. Giving hope does not empty you of hope. Offering love does not drain love. Sharing faith does not reduce faith. Darkness wants us to believe that if we give too much, we will have nothing left. But light operates under a different economy. The more it is shared, the more it fills the room. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in Scripture happened when people brought what little light they had and allowed God to multiply it. A small offering, a simple obedience, a quiet yes. Christmas Eve reminds us that God can fill a world with light starting from a manger, and He can fill a life with purpose starting from a willing heart. There are people around you right now who are desperate for light, even if they do not know how to ask for it. They may not need answers, they may not need advice, they may simply need presence. Candlelight does not speak, it shines. Sometimes the most powerful witness is not a sermon, but a life that refuses to give up hope. The room changes when light spreads. Shadows that once seemed intimidating begin to shrink. Fear that once felt overwhelming begins to loosen. Perspective returns. This is why darkness resists unity. It knows that when light stands together, its power is exposed. Division weakens light, but connection strengthens it. Christmas Eve also teaches us that light can be passed on, even in imperfect conditions. Wax drips, hands shake, flames flicker, yet the light continues to spread. God does not wait for perfection before He uses people. He works through imperfect carriers who are willing to hold the flame carefully and pass it on faithfully. You may feel unqualified to be a light for someone else because your life is not where you want it to be. But light does not wait for perfection. It shines wherever it is placed. God often uses people who are still healing to bring healing, people who are still learning to bring wisdom, people who are still waiting to bring hope. The night Jesus was born, the world did not change instantly, but it began to change. That is what shared light does. It does not always create immediate transformation, but it starts a process that cannot be stopped. One conversation, one prayer, one act of kindness, one moment of courage, these are the ways light multiplies. When you allow your light to connect with someone else's, something spiritual happens. Faith is strengthened. Courage is awakened. Purpose becomes clearer. The enemy loses ground. Darkness does not know how to handle unity rooted in light. It only knows how to scatter and isolate. But Christmas Eve gathers us together around one flame, reminding us that together we shine brighter. Some of you are carrying wounds from past relationships. You have been hurt when you opened your heart before. Darkness has convinced you to protect your flame by hiding it, but light hidden eventually grows dim. Light was designed to be seen, to be shared, to be lifted. When you risk sharing again, you allow God to restore what fear has tried to steal. Candlelight also teaches patience. You cannot rush the flame, you cannot force it. You must lean in gently, carefully, intentionally. Sharing light requires humility and attentiveness. It requires noticing who is near you, who is struggling, who needs encouragement. God often moves through small, intentional moments rather than dramatic gestures. When the shepherds left the manger, they did not keep the experience to themselves. They spread the word. They carried the light into the fields, into their conversations, into their everyday lives. Christmas Eve is not an ending, it is a beginning. It marks the moment light enters the ordinary and transforms it from within. Light shared becomes legacy. It moves beyond a single night and continues into future generations. Parents pass faith to children. Friends strengthen friends. Strangers become witnesses. What began as one flame in Bethlehem has reached across centuries because it was never contained. Darkness may try to convince you that your light does not matter, that it is too small to make a difference. But darkness is always threatened by even the smallest flame. It knows that once light begins to spread, its control is limited. The enemy fears multiplied light more than powerful darkness. As candles pass from hand to hand, the room becomes brighter not because any single flame is extraordinary, but because together they are unstoppable. This is the beauty of Christmas Eve. God invites ordinary people to participate in an extraordinary work. Not by force, not by noise, but by faithfully holding the light and sharing it. Some of you are one connection away from renewal, one conversation away from healing, one act of courage away from restoration. When light touches light, hearts change. When faith connects with faith, strength returns. When hope meets hope, joy begins to rise. This night reminds us that light is communal. It is relational. It grows stronger in proximity. It thrives when shared. The miracle of Christmas was never meant to stop at the manger. It was meant to move through lives, through communities, through generations, lighting one candle at a time, filling the darkness with warmth, clarity, and promise. This night carries a responsibility as much as it carries wonder. Candlelight is beautiful in the moment, but its true power is revealed after the gathering ends. What we hold tonight was never meant to remain confined to this space. Light that only shines in safe places loses its purpose. Christmas Eve calls us to take what has been given and carry it into a world that desperately needs it. The candle in your hand is not just a symbol of comfort, it is a commission. It reminds us that light is meant to move. Darkness does not retreat because of memory or tradition. It retreats because light shows up consistently. The question of Christmas Eve is not whether light exists, but whether it will be carried beyond the moment when it feels easiest to hold. The world outside these walls is loud, rushed, and often harsh. People are exhausted by pressure, overwhelmed by uncertainty, and burdened by expectations. Many are walking through life unseen and unheard, carrying private struggles behind public smiles. Light is needed most in places like that. Not spotlight light, not performance light, but steady, faithful, compassionate light. Carrying the light means choosing how you respond when circumstances are difficult. It means letting peace guide your reactions when fear wants control. It means allowing hope to shape your words when negativity feels easier. Light does not demand attention, but it does demand intention. It must be protected, nurtured, and prioritized. The flame you carry tonight will face resistance. Wind tries to extinguish it. Distractions try to draw your focus away. Fatigue tries to convince you to set it down. This is why Christmas Eve matters. It strengthens resolve. It reminds us that light requires stewardship. You cannot control the darkness around you, but you can choose what you carry into it. Jesus did not remain in the manger. He carried light into broken homes, hurting cities, divided communities, and wounded hearts. He brought truth where deception had settled, compassion where judgment ruled, and hope where despair had made itself comfortable. To carry the light is to follow that pattern, not in perfection, but in intention. Light carried beyond tonight looks like forgiveness when bitterness feels justified. It looks like kindness when impatience feels earned. It looks like generosity when scarcity feels real. Darkness will always argue that these responses are weaknesses, but Christmas Eve proves they are strengths. Light transforms not by force, but by consistency. Some people believe that carrying the light requires grand gestures or dramatic moments. But light usually moves through ordinary obedience. It shows up in conversations that matter, in choices that reflect integrity, in quiet prayers offered when no one else is watching. The power of light is not in its volume, but in its presence. When you carry light, you begin to see differently. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin to feel navigable. People who once felt distant begin to feel reachable. Even pain takes on new meaning, not because it disappears, but because it is no longer empty. Light does not erase scars, but it redeems them. There will be moments when carrying the light feels costly, when choosing peace costs pride, when choosing hope costs comfort, when choosing love costs control. This is where the message of Christmas Eve becomes real. Light was born into sacrifice. It was carried through surrender. It was sustained through obedience. The world does not need more opinions. It needs more illumination. It needs lives that reflect consistency, humility, and grace. Carrying the light means letting your actions align with what you believe. It means being the same person in private that you are in public. Light loses power when it is compartmentalized. Some of you feel pressure to carry the light perfectly, but perfection was never the requirement. Faithfulness is. Even when the flame flickers, it still shines. Even when your strength feels limited, the light remains effective. God does not ask you to generate the light, only to carry it. There will be seasons when the light you carry feels heavy because you are walking through your own darkness. Christmas Eve reminds us that carrying light does not mean denying struggle. It means choosing not to let struggle have the final word. Light carried through hardship becomes a testimony to those watching. Every interaction becomes an opportunity when you carry the light. Every room you enter is changed, even if subtly, Darkness may not vanish instantly, but it is disrupted. Peace enters, hope lingers, questions are raised. This is how transformation begins, quietly, steadily, faithfully. Carrying the light also means knowing when to rest it. Candles must be protected from burning out. Faith must be nourished through prayer, reflection, and community. Light that is neglected will dim. Christmas Eve invites us not only to carry the light, but to remain connected to its source. The story of Christmas does not end at the manger, and it does not end at the cross. It continues in the lives of those who choose to walk illuminated paths in dark places. Each generation receives the light and decides what to do with it. Tonight is part of that chain. Some of you will carry the light into workplaces filled with pressure. Some into homes marked by tension. Some into friendships strained by misunderstanding. Some into futures clouded by uncertainty. Wherever you go, the light goes with you, not as an accessory, but as an identity. Darkness does not need to be confronted loudly. It needs to be outlasted faithfully. Light wins by remaining, by showing up again, by refusing to go out, by standing firm when everything else feels unstable. Christmas Eve gives us courage to believe that consistency matters. When you leave tonight, the candles may be extinguished, but the calling remains. Light was never meant to stay lit only in sanctuaries. It was meant to shine in kitchens, offices, streets, hospitals, schools, and quiet rooms where prayers are whispered late at night. You carry the light when you listen without judgment, when you speak truth without cruelty, when you serve without recognition. When you trust without certainty, these are the ways light moves forward, step by step, life by life. The world may not always notice the light immediately, but it will feel its presence. Peace has a way of settling into spaces. Hope has a way of stirring hearts. Love has a way of breaking down walls. Darkness reacts to light even when it pretends not to see it. Christmas Eve entrusts us with something sacred. Not something fragile in its power, but something precious in its purpose. Light does not belong to us, but it flows through us. We are carriers, not creators, stewards, not sources. And as you carry it, remember this: darkness cannot produce light, but light will always overcome darkness. Not once, not occasionally, always. The night may be long, the path may be unclear, the future may feel uncertain, but light continues to move forward, candle by candle, heart by heart, life by life.